Welcome to Curaçao's FinTech series by CIFA and CIFC webinar. My name is William K. Santiago. This is the first of many to come, so please enjoy. Just to start, there are uncertain times with the COVID pandemic, and we have been forced to adapt. All sectors worldwide are looking for ways to innovate their business models, products, and services during these times. Of possibilities of information technology are overwhelming and countless. So CIFC partnered with CIFA and wanted to moderate the outline of the state of business and technology by offering a virtual open stage for financial technology presentations. That's the basic idea of the webinars. CIFC, CIFA wants to stimulate collaboration, knowledge sharing, and growth together as organizations. And as a nation, we need next generation financial and business product services to provide. So today we will kick off with digital payments. So let's start and let's make a smarter, more prosperous nation. Just to start, we're gonna have, we just went through the introduction. We're gonna move and talk about why do we need digital payments, what kind of payments, what kind of digital payments we'll be looking at, how we implement these kind of digital payments, how they basically work. We're also going to look at the current issues that we face in terms of digital payments, and some of the challenges those issues bring. And we'll look at benefits. What can we benefit out of solving these challenges? We're also going to look at motivation for international investors. So, what are the international investors looking when they look around to invest, especially in the Caribbean region? And finally, we're going to look at next steps for digital payment environment. So, what are the next steps in terms of digital payment, innovation, technology, and opportunities around it? So why do we need digital payment? What are the benefits of digital payment? Whether it's mobile phones, cards, whatever is available, why would we benefit out of using digital payments? So some of the benefits include it provides a lower cost, just because the resources are limited in terms of providing that innovation. If we go back in time, the 20th century, and back in the legacy systems, it required a higher degree of infrastructure, so resources, to provide basic digital payments back then. Now, with less and lower resources, we can provide even higher levels of digital payment services, and this is because of the innovation is scalable, and it's actually improving exponentially throughout the years. Another benefit that you have is the ability of having transparency and security, and they kind of go together. But the idea here is that transparency, because the innovation brings the ability to provide the view of the transactions. What exactly it's being transacted, and who can see these transactions? And this is based on the design that it takes. The people who need to see the transactions are able to see them, and the people that are not allowed to see them don't see them, and to keep the privacy and all these other things. So the technology itself, by having digital payments, introduce digital payments to the industry, it brings these two things, the transparency and security. There's also a certainty of payment before delivery, which it basically means that when the merchant receives the payment, he can deliver the product and service. So because it's a digital payment that gets confirmed, we're talking about almost instantaneous. The merchant gets that value, whether they get that value at the point of sale, or they get they get the authorization that the transaction has been initiated and it's guaranteed, and then later on settled. That's also part of these type of innovations of digital. So certainty of payment allows for for a more effective way to deliver products and services. It's better for our health because the fact that there's no contact. We're talking about near field communications, which are just electronic, the ability like to devise a card to communicate with the device at the merchant. And this is done through technology. You also have the cameras in these phones that allow you to portray a QR code. And we'll talk about those days. So the phone itself never has to have come in contact with the merchant's devices, eliminating the possibility of viruses or bacterial transfer, things like that. So it's better for health if we implement digital payments. There's obviously more business opportunities, and because we were able to provide all these new innovations, reducing the resources, increasing the amount of services, then obviously these business cases start to make more sense, and entrepreneurs are able to jump in and say, okay, now I can justify this business case that I've been thinking about, and it's been holding me back. So new opportunities start to pop up in the industry. There's also a lower entry level to startup activities because of that same thing. Now you have a business case that makes sense. So you've lowered the entry level. It's no longer these incumbent companies that have a lot of resources, a lot of capital, that are able to invest in these technologies and use these benefits basically. So the entrepreneur that has good ideas that might not have the capital makes it more difficult for them. So it lowers that level of entry for startup activities. And this also basically finally provides a wider spread of financial services. So now there's more financial services that come up from these type of innovations because of the fact that there's more people are easier able to engage in these financial services and products, so they could be used by more of the population. Some of the kinds of, in this case, point of sale, which is the electronic banking point of sale. These are what kinds of interactions do you have with digital payments? And there's basically three. You have internet electronic banking, which is the basic way of getting to interface the financial services and products that we have. Usually that's a website, so it's the traditional way of interfacing. So how do you make payment through these type of interfaces? Another way to interface is through these point of sale, which are actually the legacy point of sale. These are the ones that you put in a Maestro and put your PIN and it makes a transaction. But then again, these are hardware that needs to be in there. So the new generation of these type of point of sale are the smart POS. They become smarter because they are actually a smart phone with devices to interface, or interface devices around it. For example, this one here provides fingerprinting, so the ability to put a fingerprint, and you can then be able to very effectively collect KYC information, or information about your customers. Maybe it's needed by the regulatory, and because you can only do it on a face-to-face, these smart devices allow you to provide this service a lot easier. Another kind of payment system is the credit payment system. So this is a typical credit payment system. And I'll talk about three of these. You have the credit card, which are your basic Visa and MasterCard credit cards. And these are based on credit. So the users or customers have a credit line, and they're able to use their credit cards to interface and make digital payments. In Curaçao, we also have a product called Maestro, and Maestro is a end of life product, but it's very similar to a debit card. And we'll talk a little bit more about the differences and what is actually a debit card. But the Visa, MasterCard, and Maestro is the existing infrastructure in terms of digital payments right now in Curaçao. You also have e-mobile or mobile phone devices. These are These are the same concept of the Visa, physical Visa, MasterCard, the actual credit card, but now it's incorporated into the mobile app. So the mobile app becomes kind of like the credit card itself. So it has all the features and all the benefits of the Visa, MasterCard, Maestro, but now it's inside the mobile wallet. And finally, you have the smart card chip cards. This is just a bumped up version of this of traditional Visa and MasterCards. And they just have a smart chip inside that allows them to provide more security for the users in the transaction and hold a lot more information about the cardholder or about the account itself. So that's very useful in terms of security and providing authorization and authentication for the transactions. Another kind is the cash payment system, and this is basically three of them. The debit card that I mentioned before, and the debit card is just a card that has a linked connection or interface into the customer's account, the user's account. So if the user account has 100 guilders, that's as much as the card will authorize. So the system will only authorize up to $100. So that's why they call it a direct debit card. There is no, currently Curaçao doesn't have a debit card. They're in the process, and we'll look at a roadmap that explains where we're going to be, when we're going to be getting these type of features. But the Maestro is the closest thing we have now. The only difference is that these debit cards or credit debit cards can be used outside of Curaçao. The Maestro is limited in how that usage is. You also have eCash or mobile phone devices. These are devices that actually hold some kind of credentials for accounts. They can also hold tokens. They can hold different types of authorization, authentication, balances that allow the user to keep track of these accounts for the holder. So these are more smart version of the mobile wallet. And another very important one is the stored value card. These are the Visa cards you see in the US and in Europe, and you purchase the Visa card and you just top it up. So it has zero balance, and you just go to the cashier, hand them cash, and they top it up. In Curaçao, we have some other ones. They're usually low. They don't have to be the legal tender for the country, or the guilder, for example, in Goisko's case, or Skinny Cash, or Botiscas. So these are basically account tokens or balances of specific tokens, and they get benefits if they purchase, and they get discounts, etc., with those. With the Visa and MasterCard, you're actually topping it up with some kind of legal tender. So you might be the guilder, but it gets topped up to $2, for example. This is a local video that I would like to show, which is kind of a short video, but it's very good, very informative. Let's go ahead and play this.
Different types of digital payments are made in Curaçao every year. The important questions are: how does it work, who and what's involved, and who does what? Let's meet the players. First, there's of course the bank. It provides customers with payment cards. There are debit cards and credit cards. On each card you can find the logo of at least one payment system, also known as a payment scheme, such as Visa, Maestro, MasterCard, and many more. But you may ask, what is the payment scheme main role? It is to set the rules for each player involved in the payment process. Only when a player meets all the payment scheme's requirements, they can become an official player in the payment process. You can pay by card using different means, as long as they follow the payment scheme's rules, such as payment terminals, ATMs, pay pages and web shops, vending machines, and many more. Do you want to pay in the store? Then terminal providers such as MCB Bank, RBTT, CIBC, Banco de Caribe, Vida Nova are involved. They lease, sell and install payment terminals in stores. Do you want to pay online? Then you will go through a payment service provider who hosts web shop payments pages and offers you a selection of payment schemes to choose from. Another indispensable player is the acquirer. Here in Curaçao, it's mostly a local bank performing that role. The acquirer ensures a safe connection between terminals or pay pages and your bank, and makes sure the merchant is paid. Now that you know the basics, we can move to paying. First, you insert your card in the payment terminal, which is found in a store or in a card reader for an online payment. The terminal or card reader checks two things: is the card valid and which payment scheme is selected. The terminal or card reader then transfers the necessary information on your bank card to the acquirer. The acquirer delivers your payments request to your bank, all according to the payment scheme's rules. After that, your bank now checks the following three things. Did you use the correct PIN code? Does your account have sufficient balance for the requested payment? And is everything secure? If the answer to all the three questions is yes, the payment is accepted. But we are not done. Several times a day, the acquirer and banks exchange information to credit the merchant's bank accounts. During the payment process, the money is almost immediately debited from the cardholder's account, but it doesn't show up straight away in the merchant's account. Payment transactions are processed in bulk, every few hours. And what about mobile payments? They are almost the same. They involve players and follow the same rules. The only difference is you don't even need a card to pay. Just scan the QR code, enter your bank contact app code, and you're done. It's the easiest way, and what's even more amazing is that on the same device you can do your shopping and pay by just selecting the bank contact app as your payment option and enter your PIN code, and you're done. As you can see, there are many players involved in digital payments. Together they strive to make payments easy, quick, and most importantly, secure. So easy and comfortable paying.
Okay, so as you saw in that video, very descriptive and easy to follow. Let's go a little bit deeper in that whole process that you saw in that video. But first thing that happens is in terms of digital payment methods, is it's what we call an authorization, and in this authorization is the first phase out of three phases. So here we have a diagram that explains from the point of view of the users on the left side all the way to the transaction where the accounts of the user and the merchants gets debit and credited. So in the case of the users on this end, they will the first step that happens is they are actually at the merchant or at the ATM, and they will then the card is read or via contactless or QR code, and the credentials are checked for validity to see if they're actually valid credentials. There also checks which payment scheme is being used. If everything is okay, then that in this case is the acquirer, which is the same as the issuer or the bank or the bank itself. They will then coordinate with the Visa network and check to see if there is no risk, fraud protection tools, etc. And to make sure that these transactions valid and secured. So that's the first step, or the second step. The third step and the final step in the authorization part is that the issuer or the bank at this point make sure that, okay, is the PIN that the user put in, is it correct? Is the balance not 0 or 100 or not going above the balance? And is everything secure? Again, checking for security checks to make sure that everything is okay. So this is the basic authorization part that the user sees. This is what you actually at the point of sale. All of this happens within seconds. So then you have the part of what they call the clearing part of this process, and the acquirer basically now has these transactions that they got throughout the day or throughout the morning or the afternoon. And the first thing within this phase is the clearing process. So, and this clearing includes the acquirer sends the transactions to the Visa network. So all these transactions get batched and sent over to the Visa network. The Visa network then batches them up again, also making sure they're making checks and balances, and sends the transactions over to the issuer, to the bank itself. The issuer is the bank that actually issues the credit card or the debit card. The issuer then, if it's a Maestro, it checks into their own privatized Maestro network, But finally, in this phase, what it does, it removes any hold on the accounts or debit account. So it also does this by checking the account itself and says, okay, there's no hold anymore, so I can clear the hold, for example, and be able to release the funds that they need to move to the merchant. So this is the clearing part. And then finally, the last phase, which is called the settlement phase. It also happens either throughout the day or at the end of 2 or 3 days or at the end of the week, whereas the acquirer, again, consolidates all the net settlements from Visa itself that they got, and it consolidates them. And basically what it does is that same acquirer basically settles by settling the process, it's all settlements are finalized for that day. So for that day, that batch gets settled. In other words, the transfer from accounts to merchants get settled at that day. So this is on a batch process. So even though the person might have made the purchase in the morning, the settlement doesn't happen until the afternoon. So the merchant might not see that credit until after this process or phase gets done. In terms of how these payments methods look at the level of the CBCH, which is our regulator, the central bank, how does it look for them, and how does the CBCS participate? This is our central bank. It looks basically like this, where you have the users themselves, and if this is because it happens from one bank to another bank, so you have your originator bank to a beneficiary bank. The CBCS itself has a system called a NAC system. Within there, the existing systems uses real-time gross settlement and ACH. These are very well-known systems that settle using the settlement of between banks, commercial banks. So these are systems in which it does it. So this is the batch process. So if it has to go to a beneficiary bank, the CBCS has to do the settlement, has to do the processing within that day. And this is the traditional way of doing it. This is how it's been done in the U.S., in Europe, and Asia for a long time, years, 10, 15, 20 years. And this is the system that's going to be replaced in the near future, with an IP CSM kind of settlements system. Which basically the difference here is that it's gonna this same tradition transfer a transaction that happened within a day, or 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, because in these systems there's also a manual process that happens. This one is going to be within 10 seconds. Within 10 seconds, it will be the originator bank will initiate the transaction, go through the central bank, and that system will transfer that or make that value transfer from one bank holder to another bank's credit holder. This usually is a system that's been used in Europe. It's called Ideal uses similar like this. So this is not new. It's been also used for the last 10, 15 years as well. They have it also in the US, they have it in Europe. So it's not say an innovative way, but at least it's good that the central bank is moving towards a new 21st century type of payment, digital payment system. So this is kind of like the roadmap. We'll look at the roadmap itself from the central bank to give you a little more details on this process. So what are the current issues that digital payments have here in Curaçao at the moment? Getting a bank account it just takes long, it's cumbersome, it's difficult, so it's not an easy process. And that could be the same for a lot of Caribbean islands. But it's a challenge. It's an issue that needs to be addressed. How can we make this a lot smoother, a lot easier? So there's always ways to improve. There's also a lot of restrictions in terms of bank policies regarding online payments. And it's understandable that these are placed there to secure these transactions, secure the players, to have some kind of confidence in the system. But when they are policies that used to be used for the 20th century type of payment system, and now you just adjust it because now it's digital and move it over to the digital system, they usually don't address the issues correctly. So this is a challenge, and it's going to be addressed and it's addressed by that roadmap that Curaçao Central Bank is proposing to implement. Also, there's a lot of outdated procedures for e-commerce activities because these e-commerce activities have to be molded to reflect that 20th century, so kind of archaic system that we currently have. Then the e-commerce have to jump over extra hoops just to make it feel like it's an electronic commerce activity when it's really not. So there are just outdated procedures that need to be changed when these new policies and regulation gets up to par and the new systems get implemented. For example, implementing payment system for online shops. It's just tedious to do that if you have these procedures that need to be in place. The cost of effective and credit card and bank setting is also worse and will likely deteriorate. So basically what that means is that the cost of credit card issuance will have high fees because these banks are usually running cartels or monopolies. They tend to keep those prices very high because there's really not much competition. So the merchants get hit by these fees, and they just don't show that to the customers. They just bump up their prices, and that's how they basically mask the cost associated with these type of archaic systems that they currently have. So obviously this moves us into the more popular systems that are absent in Curaçao, such as real-time payments, or they call it RTP. That's where we go into the 10 seconds per transaction. That the value in my bank account gets transferred over to the merchant's bank account. Debit cards are an important innovation that needs to be implemented. It's already being used in Europe. It's just a matter of doing it here. So we're just Curaçao at the moment with these types of issues and solving them. We'll be catching up with the 21st century. So obviously this brings a lot. All these issues bring a lot of opportunities that could be addressed or brought up. Some of the challenges in doing these digital payment environments, and what does it mean to implement all these type of for the merchants, for the users, for regulators, etc. The biggest challenge is the market size. If you don't have a market size that justifies your business case, you won't implement these type of innovations. And usually then for example, PayPal or Google Pay, they won't come here. Facebook Pay, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but these payment systems require a certain market size so they can justify coming here, and we don't have that. So it's important for the government and the regulators to make it a lot easier for these initial onboarders to come into the market. The merchant's incentive to improve customer service is not there, and this is something that all industries in Curaçao struggle constantly, and it's that customer experience has to be improved. And usually the tools, if the tools are archaic or are slow and then the incentive to improve customer service kind of like goes into the back burner. It doesn't get forward and gets addressed. You might come different management styles to address it, but the idea here is that if you improve the system and make it more up to the level that the international community is doing, then that also improves customer service. Example is the Maestro, for example. It's a very effective kind of like a debit card that we've been using for a long time, but as soon as you get into an airplane and travel to Europe, you can't use it. You go to the US, you can't use it. You might use it in a few countries here and there, but not that many. There's no appetite to collaborate between banks. Banks are just tight in their in the part where they need to collaborate together. Because these are cartels, and in some cases they have monopolies. Why would I want to collaborate with anybody? When we have the system in place that's been feeding us revenue for so long, why disrupt? Why change? In other words, so there's no appetite for that brainstorm and trying to collaborate. It's only when the forces come from the outside that come in, then you start realizing, wait a second, this is our federation it's only local here. It's not. We have to actually compete in the outside world, in the international community. Another challenge is the unbanked. I mean, we just in Caribbean there's a lot of unbanked citizens, but specifically in Curaçao and St. Martin, you'll have a lot of bank people that have a Maestro, or they'll be able to deposit their account, and even that I'm saying maybe not that many, but the ones that do, the percentage of those are even lower if you start saying, okay, well, I would like to have a debit card that I can have and have some kind of credit line that I can use on a website, or I can use when I travel. And that's even a smaller amount of users in the banking system. So those are just unbanked because, yeah, you're banked while you're here in Curaçao. But when you try to purchase something online and have it delivered during these pandemic times, my Maestro doesn't work. So I still need a debit card. So again, it lowers it, and you have to actually physically go to the store and do the transaction. And where does the central bank's role play in all this? It's basically been dormant or silent for the last 10, 15 years. They're just reacting to every single situation. They're not taking a proactive role, and that's extremely important. And we see that the central bank now, because of the external forces, the pandemic, the economic situation, they're being forced to change, and this usually is the only way that the central bank reacts is when external forces come in and make them react, basically. Also, the user adoption, because of all these things, the unbanked, the role of the central bank, the appetite, the incentive to improve customer services. Another big one is just that users don't feel like using either complicated system because are required by the type of legacy systems that are. Users say, oh, well, this is not feasible. But now they're going and they're realizing that there's all these other products out there that are now online, and they can see and they can say, well, why can't we use those? So the user adoption is slow because there are limited amount of tools that the users have are not functioning at where they are. And they only function when they go outside, and so they don't get the time to adopt to those as quickly as possible. And finally, a very important one is the cost of doing business is just way too high. So if you have investors coming in and trying to start you first have to deal with the cartels and the monopolies, but also you have to deal with opening a bank account and going through the process. And usually in most countries, in the U.S., Asia, and abroad, that process is a lot smoother. Here it's just heavy with red tape and bureaucracy, and the cost of doing business is way too high. So some of the another benefits that we have for innovative or characteristics that within these benefits, you have cheaper transactions because these transactions run on a more effective and efficient system. In other words, infrastructure that requires less resources. Now you're saving your costs are going down. You can then pass that cost saving over to the customer. And not only that, but you're gonna have other players come into the market, which will create market forces, which will create competition, bringing those prices down. So that just translates into cheaper transactions because the cost of operating those transactions are much less. You also have instantaneous transactions, and that's a big plus because now you have the value transfer happening at the point of sale, and they don't really have to be batched at the end of the day or at the end of the week or at the end of the month. So this instantaneous transfer of value it's highly important. And you have the benefits also of contactless transactions. You have the QR code, you have cameras, you have NFC, all these kind of smart things that the point of sale will have. And again, the point of sale could be a sticker on the side of a troquipan, for example. We'll see one example of that. And a very big one too is the multi-currency adaptation, so including cryptocurrencies. What this basically means is that your smart device or your smart application or your smart or your account itself, which could be in the back end, will have the benefit of interfacing with multiple currencies. So you could be you go from the euro to the dollar, from the dollar to the guilder, from the guilder to the Colombian peso. You could be jumping back and forth because you're dealing with an international exchange market out there that the users have access to. So that increases the utility of these solutions. That's very important to have digital payments because it gives you the ability to add these type of features or benefits. And moving forward with that type of idea is is some of the examples of digital payments in terms of infrastructure, processing, and issuance, is that you have, for example, in this case, you have these users are ready to transact. They will have a lower cost and a better service. Now, what happens is that when they make that transactions, you will have automatically there's going to be the transaction will pay its taxes automatically. So instead of having another interface, another infrastructure, just to collect taxes at point of sale, this device, this QR code, that specific digital payment will have that built in as its core. It also happens immediately. The value transfer immediately going to the merchant is very highly important because these are digital accounts, digital transfer. The value happens instantaneously. So the merchant is able to provide much faster services and products because he's getting paid immediately, basically. And finally, you have the automatic records of transactions submitted to both the merchant and the customer bank. And this is a very high amount of information that the merchant has, the government has, and the customers have, because they will have all this information of transactions secured with privacy, because each player will have only view of certain parts of that data. And that's the idea, that you're able to provide this type of benefits to both the consumers, the users, and the government, and the merchants. And this is an example of these QR codes. This is what you see on the screen is a QR code. QR because it's like kind of square, but it's just a QR code. It has a lot of information in this code. And some of the benefits, one example is the Troquipan. I mentioned it before. You could have a Troquipan that has this sticker on the side of the wall. So you look at the menu, you don't even have to touch the menu. The menu could be next to the QR code, and you tell the cook or the server that you need, this sandwich, this to drink, and then they come it up and say, okay, the payment's going to be 15 guilders. So then you scan the QR code and send 15 guilders to that QR code, which is actually the account of the Troquipan, and they will see that payment was made, so they can start delivering the service. Huelga de number, same idea there. Supermarkets with QR codes, the guy helping you at the store to take your groceries to your car could have on his sidearm a QR code, and that's his personal wallet. So when you get to the car and you realize, oh, wait a second, I don't have change for you. Well, you don't have to give them change or look for change in the car, physical fiat change. You just pick up your mobile app and you will make a transfer. We'll see a demonstration of that process and how it works. But that's another possibility. Now we have the instant transfer of cents, 50 cents, 5 guilders, 1 guilder, very small amounts that could be sent without any point of sale device or anything like that, just a picture, and they could be put on the side of the arm of one of the boys that help you with the groceries. You also have, we'll talk about a chip, which is the mobile app that we currently have here in Curaçao that have all these features that is being used right now. So this is something that it's already operational. It's being worked on. It's used because you have other places throughout the world that's been using this technology for years, and now it's being materialized here in Curaçao. Utility bill, pagatino, another one, and the people benefit because now you can transfer value from each other. You don't have to have, do you have a payment system? Oh, let me open your wallet and take out. You don't even have to do that. You just pay each other. Maybe we split the cost of dinner, for example. This is just a snapshot of a digital payment environment, the trends from 2018 to 2022, more or less. In terms of e-commerce, so this is online payments. You see the electronic wallets from 2018, 36 to 47%, credit cards, debit cards, bank transfers, and cash on delivery, prepaid cards, postpay, invoice. Those things are dropping down. They're actually less. Then you move into a point of sale, which is that QR code that we talked about. Well, cash is going from 31% to 17%. So the cashless society is exponentially moving forward. So it's no longer, oh, it's going to be in 10, 15 years. No, this is cashless societies will be moving forward within years, not 10 years or anything like that. Debit cards, the same increase. Credit card too, e-wallets, charge cards, and so on. So this gives you an idea of how this trend has been moving forward to 2020. And this trend doesn't consider the pandemic, but this obviously now with the pandemic, these numbers might be completely different. So what are the motivations for international investors to come to Curaçao and say, okay, we want to invest? And these could be financial services, these type of services that can provide products and services for the international market and for the local market. What they're looking for is they're looking for non-bank. Are we allowed to participate in a national payment system? And this is in the roadmap of the central bank. So that's what they're looking at. That they're also looking at new legislation. Right now we have drafted new legislation that just needs to be approved. So they're also looking at, are you working on the regulatory side? For example, financial market infrastructures. Are they being, do you have regulation for those new financial structures? For a payment institution, electronic money transmitter, do you have license? How easy it is? How flexible do they address these new technologies? You also have, they're looking at new operators because they have new business models. So for example, payments and security clearing systems, we're talking about new innovations like security token offerings, tokenized infrastructure. These are basically securities of a company, for example, instead of being physically managed at a physical level by humans. You'll have a smart contract that will digitize these tokens or these securities, which opens up a whole different opportunities out there. And finally, we have the person-to-government payment. It's also in the central bank roadmap, and this is basically the ability for the person to make payment to the government. This is usually taxes or some other type of linkage between the users and the government. And this is the roadmap, which I mentioned before. You have the first quarter of next year. That's where this IP CSM phase 1 is going to be initiated or implemented. This basically includes instant 10-second transactions between commercial banks. So this is kind of like the back end. The user is not involved at this point. This is the transfers between the banks. So this happens within 10 seconds. So now merchants can incorporate that first view where the users can pick one bank and pay to another bank, another user, or the merchant bank, if you don't have the same account in the same bank. So that's the phase 1. In quarter 3 of next year, you'll have instant payment for consumers, business and governments. So here what we have is now the consumers are able to pay each other, just like we saw with the QR code and how you can pay the guy at the grocery store. This is similar to that. So this is now initiated officially from the central bank by quarter 3rd of next year. After that, you'll have the elimination of batch processing. So no longer are we doing all these transactions and batching them at the end of the day or the end of the week or in 3 days or something like that. That's also going to be phased out. And looking forward after that also, we're going to have the ability for instant payment between countries. So now at this point, the central bank is actually saying we're going to be introducing the payment between the guilders and the US dollar and the pound and the Aruba guilder or the euro. So all these type of coins will be, or currencies will be within that mobile application or within that infrastructure. So you'll be able to handle all of those. So these are some of the next steps in digital payment. First, we'll start with the trends in Asia and India. And like I said, the vendors have these QR codes, and they're prevalent throughout the country. And it doesn't require a big, high investment in terms of infrastructure. It's just a mobile app. and some account in a bank or in a financial institution that provides these services. In this case, Paytm is one of the big companies. It's very similar to PayPal, but it might not be associated with PayPal. And then we have this local company, CHIP, that's been following all these regulatory requirements, etc., from the central bank, and they finally opened the market with a product called CHIP, which is an electronic peer-to-peer wallet or consumer-to-business wallet. These are some of the examples of the screenshots. They also have another product called CIFC Events BV, which is a cashless solution for local events, basically. But let me show you this small demonstration of this video, and we'll come back. Sorry. So as you saw in that video demonstration, there is a tool. It has guilders in it, and that you can top up, and you can then transfer from person to person or person to merchant at the moment. So we do have these in place. So what can we see going forward? A question that I get asked also: what can and should we do? And this is my opinion of what needs to happen is there has to be a clear, fair, transparent rules and regulation created by the government and enforced by the central bank. So this has to be in place. You can't have any ambiguity here. You have to have these transparent, clear rules and regulatory environment. Basically, the rules of the game. And let private market lead innovation, but under fair, balanced competition with no cartels or monopolies. This is key because now we have the correct rules of the game. Let the players play in a competitive environment to be fair and balanced. So this is key for the success of this innovation. So where do you see the opportunities? And I see them in the private sector with local innovators that have been following similar existing regulation, like CHIP, for example, using external industry 21st century innovation. You know, they know these are the tools that are being used in the financial market in Asia, in Europe, in the US. Why can't we use them here? So that's where you want to see where the opportunities are. It's where these type of players are playing with these rules. So Hopefully you enjoyed the webinar. If there's any other questions, just post them down at the comment area. Thank you.